Hi, I'm Gonzalez with Sustainable Culinary Solutions, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to discuss something that just keeps popping up over and over and over again. And by that are small businesses, startups, or existing small businesses in the restaurant industry. And the old saying, the old definition of what is the definition of insanity? Doing something over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's how our food industry has been for a long time. It's completely broken. And right now is probably one of the worst times to open up a small restaurant or coffee bar. And I just keep getting clients over and over again. And they seem to think that they're different. They're the exception to the rule. And it kind of hurts my business to tell them not to open up anything because that's an extra client that I'm going to lose. But in another sense is that if they want to open it, I'll help them. I'll be more than happy to help them out and make sure they're somewhat successful. But right now in our industry, there's so many obstacles, and I want to give a bunch of examples of it. And what I say is, why are these people being so obtuse, so unaware of what's going on in this environment? And right now, what we see is that, and I'm going to explain all this in detail, a lot of details to open up a restaurant. It's not just like a retail store where you can just buy product, overseas or locally and put it on your shelves and sell it. There's so much training involved in a restaurant, so many practices, health, board of health, and much more directs than what you'd have to pay for than the average business. So here's what I'm seeing across the board right now. Okay, the last few years during the shutdown, thousands of restaurants, small businesses have shut down. They can't keep up. And right now with the economy going on, again, I keep mentioning this, and they just blindly just think that, okay, I'm different. I'm going to succeed in this business. And right now is the worst time to be in a small restaurant business or any restaurant business. People are in debt. You're talking about $16 trillion in credit card debt. And for the life of me, we don't see these homes where there's signs on their doorsteps saying foreclosure. It's not like before in 2008 where they were just, every other home was like that. And right now, for some reason, these banks, although you've seen these banks closing down and they're deferring these loans on these home loans, and no one's really filed bankruptcy yet. And I know all this stuff is going to come real soon, but why everyone's not seeing the signs? And here's what's also happening. So there's been a lot of layoffs. There's been a lot of people saying, you know what, I'm not going to work for this company anymore. I'm going to start my own business. It's ridiculous. Just because one or two people make it on Instagram and become an influencer, or somebody opens up a small business and does well. Again, in a restaurant industry, they used to say out of 10 small restaurants that open up, 7 close within the first year or two. Now it's about, I would say, 8 or 9, and what's going on here is that I don't understand how people are excited. And it's almost like buying a brand new car. If it's your first or second car, you see this brand new car, it's like a shiny new penny on the ground. You see a car, you don't pay attention to the interest rate, you don't pay attention to the price, and you just have to have it. You have to have everything, bells and whistles, all the options, and you go and buy it. And then within 2 to 3 months, you're saying, why did I buy this car? It's too much money. Why did I pay that interest? I paid another $200-300 than the average person. Why didn't I wait? Why didn't I shop more? This wasn't the right time. And you wish you can go and get out of that contract, and you can't. And that's what this is. Buying a restaurant right now is like getting into quicksand. The harder you're going to try to get out of it, you're going to start sinking more and more. And I'm not trying to be negative here. Okay. This is not the point. I try to be as honest as I can in life and to share my knowledge and what I've done in this industry with those that probably don't have that opportunity. And a lot of small business owners, they're not qualified, whether you have a financial background or that you're a chef. And if you're a chef and you want to open up a restaurant, well, you're no longer a chef, you're a business owner. Bottom line counts. Every penny counts. You have to think like a business owner. You can't just think with your food head and say, okay, I'm going to cook this great food and people are going to come. And there's a lot of mistakes that we are making. So let's go over some of these things and what I've been seeing the last few months. And I get these proposals sent to me, these contracts or, these LOIs, and I'm just looking at them and I'm just saying, why go back, negotiate, 2 years ago before 2020, you could actually negotiate. The cost per square footage was a lot cheaper. And right now, um, we're buying from corporations, we're leasing from corporations, we're subleasing from corporations, and these corporations are not going to back down. They're not going to give you anything. In fact, if you're not reading that contract pretty carefully, that leasing agreement, you're paying a lot more money than what you think you are, and you think you're getting all these benefits, and you're not. Okay, there's some trickery and some word manipulation in these contracts that I've been reading, and that people have been sending me, and it's all manipulated. Again, corporations that buy into these shopping centers, into the shopping malls, they're too strong. You can't beat them. Once you're in, you're locked in. So let's go over some of the things that are going on that I think people are just blind and obtuse to. And I'm not trying to be insulting to anybody. I'm just being honest here again. But when we see the um, natural gas, I'm not talking about crude oil. I'm talking about natural gas going up 2 to 3 times, electricity going up, the economy, product costs, paper costs, food costs. And it's not where they say 8%, 28%. It's been 100% for the most part. You're buying chicken breast wholesale at $2.90, $3 a pound. 2 or 3 years ago, you're paying, $5 to $6 now a pound, and that's almost everything across the board. And that's linen costs because they need energy and natural gas. You're talking about everything. Petroleum is what makes paper. So when these costs rise, they rise. And then the food chain, if there's a shortage, if we're putting sanctions on other countries and we're not bringing this food in, and again, factories have been burning down across the United States, there are so many red flags not to purchase a restaurant right now or a small business. But everyone thinks that they're exception to the rule. And, it's all these people say, I'm not going to work for anybody. I'm going to be my own boss. You know how many millions of people are doing this right now? And the chances of you being successful is like the chances of you winning the lottery. I don't care how good you are, how smart you are, how you think you're the exception to the rule. You're not. Okay. And I'm not trying to be mean or beat up a dead horse. I'm just saying that, take your money and invest it, find good investments and roll it over in the next couple of years if you understand what and things to invest. And yes, the market's bad. I'm not just talking about just the stock market that's been dropping and failing, but I noticed that it drops and drops and drops every 4 days, and the fifth day shoots up a little bit and then goes back down. And this is a perfect opportunity to actually be a little bit in the stock market because it's a little bit more predictable. Basically you're not buying, you're selling, and then that one opportunity to buy. But for the most part, I look at things that are in the future to invest my money in, things that are rolling into the future, like Elon Musk and Tesla. It dropped to $104 a share. And, it shot up within a month over $100. And it's going to go back up because he has some of the most innovative, futuristic things that are coming. And it's going to come, Miso Electronics. I'm all into food technology. We're shortage right now of food service workers across the United States, but we're paying them high wages. Even in the Midwest, they're paying $16 to $18 an hour. Over here in California or other heavy duty states, they're paying 18. I know some food service workers at McDonald's making $23 an hour, $25 an hour. And that's the other part. Why are you going to open up a small business and think that you're going to run it by yourself or be able to hire somebody? There's just too many factors that are going against you. Product costs, labor costs, energy resources. And let's just forget about that. Let's push that to the side, think you're smart and you're better. Because right now, to go out to fast food, if you're not taking home delivery, just for 2 people, you're looking at $30 to $35 just for 2. Okay. And if you're having it delivered, you're going to pay 45 to 50. It's not a sustainable recipe. Okay. It's you can't do it. Okay. And there might be an exception to the rule, but the chances of you being able to do it and you don't have the knowledge or you haven't been in the industry, and you have a great product or a great idea, just because you can make a really good burrito or taco doesn't mean that you can do it for the food industry and cost it out. And what I've noticed with a lot of small business owners, they're not doing all these business plans. They're not costing out their menu. They're not doing a budget. They're not projecting all their costs ahead of time. And if they are, they're doing it wrong. I knew a CEO recently, and I'm not going to mention where or from, and he was in the food industry, and he took $2 million of his sales and he divided it by 12. Okay. Now that's just a disaster, knowing that we have, depending on how many days you're open, but if you're open up 7 days a week and you notice that you have, months with 5 weeks, other months with 4 weeks, 19 days, 18 days, 21, 25, or 30 days, you have to be able to calculate the sales on those days and then flex them out based on holidays or days that you are going to close. And they're not doing that. Are they breaking out costs in different cost centers if they're going to do catering or anything else? They're not doing this. A lot of small businesses are not even doing inventories. They have no inventory sheets, even some of the larger ones. I walk into these operations and not one thing is taking inventory. And, with the pricing fluctuating and the economy going up and down, you have to understand that you have to be able to adjust your pricing and your market to that. And that's bank charges also. People are so blinded that they don't realize that they've been getting their credit card statement, and over the last year, the interest rate on their credit card, the fees have gone up. They may have been paying 18%, and all of a sudden they look at their credit card statement after 6 months of not looking at it properly, and they're at 23 or 25%. And all they've been paying is interest rates. They haven't been paying the principal. And this is a part of the economy right now that's going to kick in and crash. And for a restaurant to, a small business owner to think that the restaurant's going to be successful right now, that the pandemic's over, there's projections that another one's going to hit in 2025. And I'm not one to speculate whether that's true or not. But the one thing most business owners are not doing is projecting for the future. They don't ready themselves for the future. And they live day to day because there's not enough money. There's not enough profitability in a restaurant. When you're paying a product cost, at, you want your product cost at 18 to 23%. And right now it's almost impossible to get there. And you want your labor costs at 30%. Then you have the fringe and payroll taxes and all this other stuff that's involved there. And then, liability insurance and all that stuff adds up. And then you have your directs. My advice, if you are going to open one up, is you have 3 bank accounts. Okay. One to write checks out for product costs, one for payroll. Okay. Keep that in separate, and one for accruals. You always accrue. So it's basically like a savings account. So every time you make money, you take $5,000 a month and you put in this bank account, so that when you have sick time or you have vacation time, you're not digging into your pocket or going negative. You're taking that money out of those accruals. And if you have a natural disaster, and a lot of people say, you know what, the pandemic was not our fault. We didn't know about this. We weren't ready for it. Well, you have to be ready for a natural disaster in a business. You have to have a 1 and 3 year plan, and you have to be prepared for the future of anything that happens. And I'm not trying to be mean to anyone. It was a horrible thing that happened to many, many small businesses. But the problem with small businesses is that they don't think of it as, I look at myself as being a huge business owner, even though I'm a small business owner. I take a look at myself and put myself in a situation. What would I do if I was a corporation? Do I know how to be a corporation? And you prepare. You have a disaster prepared list of what to do, who to talk to, how to react. You don't sit around for a week or 2 weeks to cut your vendors and cut supplies and reduce inventory. You don't wait for this stuff. You react right away. And you have that extra bank account for emergency funds so that you don't go bankrupt, and you react. You sit there, you have a business meeting, you listen to your employees or your team members, and you talk it out and say, okay, what are we going to, okay, we're going to flex it out. Who wants to go on unemployment? Who wants to have part-time? And you communicate with everyone, and you come up with a business plan. You redo your business plan right away. When the economy is taking off and going under, or we hit a minor recession, or we're going to go into a big recession. And right now we're probably in about a minor recession. I don't know if we're heading towards a depression, I can't say, but if we do end up going to war, then you're going to see a recession hit, a deeper one. And the problem with all this, are we prepared for any of this stuff? Even right now, is anyone preparing for it? Does anyone have a plan in place? I wouldn't sign any contracts. And these vendors will take you. They'll take you for 60 months when you get assigned to 1 year. And that's the problem. And that's the problem with everyone not preparing themselves and being ready for a business. So again, recently I've been given a lot of proposals for leasing. And the one thing I'm reading, okay, before 2020, I was looking at the market. A lot of these, there was just too many businesses that were empty, and a lot of these landlords were trying to lease them out. And in California, different places, I would see anywhere from 250 to 3.25 per square foot. And it was a triple net. And the landlords would have paid for some of the renovations. They would have kicked in some money, whether it was $20 per square foot, $15 or $10 per square foot, but they were at least helping for the roofing or whatever else, trenching. And that's the other thing with a restaurant. When you're opening one up, it's not like retail. You're just going to put some drywall up and a few fixtures and or office buildings. It just, you have to trench. You have to dig into and have hand sinks and drainage and all this stuff. And trenching could be up to $100,000. And where I'm seeing this going right now is the landlords are adding so much extra that I've never seen before. And people aren't reading it right. They're adding an extra dollar for maintenance, outside maintenance, whatever kind of maintenance, piping, whatever else, but they're still responsible if the piping breaks. And they're adding an extra dollar. So if you're, and the locally and all the places that I'm going to, they're going to $4 a square foot, $4.25. And recently I just seen something for $4.75. So business owner that's going to sign this lease is going to pay $5.75 a square foot. Okay. So if you're paying $5.75 a square foot and over square footage, okay. So, you could probably open a small coffee bar with 800 square feet. And I'm seeing people asking for 1,200 or 1,500 or 1,800, and it's ridiculous. I've seen small Chinese restaurants. And one thing about China, okay, they're about 10 years advanced from us in the food industry. And here's a few of the tricks that they do. And they're very frugal with what they do and how they buy. And they look at the square footage. They negotiate the square footage. And they can open up a full-on restaurant at 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. If they want to get big and expand, they're at 2,500 square feet. And you're saying that's too small even for a kitchen. And the kitchens are small. You can barely move around. But they're smart. They leave for the square footage for the customers, for more tables. And they do have turnover. When I was in Brooklyn, New York a while back, and I went to a Chinese restaurant, and it was basically everything was shipped and imported from China. And the way they do this, and I wouldn't do it because it's a little dangerous, but they actually put the storeroom above the dishwasher, and they had a ladder, and it's a little dangerous to bring food up and down, but they utilize every piece of square footage. Here in the United States, we see something and we want all that space, and we overbuy the square footage. We overlease. We have too much square footage. We don't need, you can cut back by 500. But I've even seen some of these landlords not even give the price per square footage on some of these leases. And people are just renting out 500 square feet, and they realize that $3 or $4 a square foot, they're not going to get as much money as they want. So then they manipulate the contractor. Just by the time you signed it, you actually paid $8 a square foot. So you have to be proficient as a business owner to be able to read all this and have a business plan and map it out and break out all these costs, even the vendors cost out every grain of salt, and they're not doing it. And they're not creating their budgets properly. And this is the main problem. So again, all the signs are around right now. Banks crashing, the product costs going up, the supply chain, every problem is out there. But yet everyone thinks I'm going to be able to do this. And I just don't understand it. I don't understand why you want to throw in. And again, I renovated a small dining center into a coffee bar, I would say about 10 years ago. And, for the Blues and the Cads, I had to pay $5,000 for that alone before I even went in. But the budgeted cost was $385,000. That was 10 years ago. Could you imagine a small operation the size of a Starbucks, a small coffee operation, you having to renovate or build from scratch out? If I paid $385,000 10 years ago, would you imagine what the construction costs have gone up? What you're going to pay now? You're going to pay $500,000 to $600,000 easily, and that's without moving in, without inventory, without anything else. That's just equipment, cabinets, flooring, lighting, electrical, and drainage. And that's one thing that I do in this business as a strategist is I make sure that I help you get every cost situated. But some people say, okay, Ali, you're full of it. I can do this. I know what I'm doing. And it's harder to make money when you have a business partner. And some of these people are going in with 2 or 3 business partners. Now, I get messages all the time, every day. Ali, would you like a loan? Would you like a small business loan? And I've known some of these business owners have taken $50,000 out, thinking, and they had their own money, another couple 100,000, thinking they're going to be able to open something up with 250 or something. And I see so many different types because a lot of these loan officers are desperate right now because no one's taking out loans. The interest rates are too high. The latest one I've seen, someone offered me a 9.9% business loan for up to $1 million. I said, okay, what's the interest rate? He goes, 9.9%. And I'm like, okay, well, a couple years ago, it was 7 or 6. So now 9. I go, and what's the terms? He goes, 2 years. Okay, 2 years. Wow. Could you imagine taking out a business loan for $1 million, even 500,000, and paying it back in 2 years at 9%? Again, a home, you take 30 years, and a couple years ago, it was 2.53%. Maybe even if you took it for 5%, but you had 30 years to pay it off. And let's say your mortgage was around $3,000. At 9%, at $500,000 for 2 years, you're never going to be able to pay that back because you're going to be paying your lease. You're going to, at the square footage, which is probably going to run you $4,000 or $5,000. And don't forget about the 3% increase every year. Then you're going to be paying your taxes on the place and the insurance. And it's just those start off costs alone. And I was looking at somebody's lease alone recently, and the landlord wanted a 10-year. Again, if you're not going to make it in the first 2 or 3 years, even the first year, you're stuck paying that lease for another 8, 9 years, 5 years, whatever time that you decide to close down. If you decide you're not going to do this anymore, you're stuck paying it unless you sublease it, and you have to make sure that's in the contract that you're allowed to sublease. Either that or you're filing bankruptcy. There's not a lot of wiggle room for you. And that's why I'm here to discuss all this, is to really evaluate what are we doing, what are we looking at? Because when I'm looking at these leases and I'm looking at these contracts that these corporations are saying, and also if you're in a shopping center, if you're a shopping mall, a heavy traffic shopping center, brand new, they're adding up a certain amount of money that you can make, and they want to see your books. So you're allowed to make up to 8% or whatever the terms of the lease are. And then after that, if you make anything above a certain amount, a certain percentage, the landlord gets a kickback. And people are not defining this. They're not understanding it. They're saying, well, I'm going to do well, and we can make cash on the table. And again, if we're going digital soon and there's no cash and the dollar fails, all this stuff you have to consider. And again, it's not about being a conspiracy theorist. It's not about saying this is going to happen. We don't know. It's projecting, putting all your pros and cons on the table and on the board, and understanding what you're buying, what you're getting yourself into. And the cons are, okay, what happens if the dollar does crash? What happens if, the recession hits even deeper and people stop going out? And that they're already stopped going out. They can afford it. Again, for fast food, you're paying $50 to $80. Seriously? That's fast food. And if you're opening something up small and it's tiny, if you're selling a side salad, if you're not selling for 12, I noticed sandwich shops now are up to $18. I'm not talking about a New York sandwich with 8 ounces of deli meat. I'm talking about a regular sandwich for 2 ounces. We're getting into the worst part of history that I've ever seen in life. And right now, small businesses are not going to make it. I'm sorry. It's the recipe and the combination of things that are happening right now is not set up for small businesses. Okay. The corporations have taken over. The expenses are too high. They can promise you the world, but when you come and challenge them and you decide you can't make it and you're not making enough money, Right now, I don't care how much. And again, if you're not selling alcohol of your small business, that's where you're losing money also. But again, you have to make sure you're going to be successful and people are going to go there to drink. But for the most part, if you're not getting $18 to $25 for a small entree, even a burrito and tacos, if you're not charging $5 or $6 per taco, you can't make it. It's not even whether you portion it out, and everybody wants these large portions. And that's the other piece of China being advanced. It's not just about the square footage that they do. They simplify their menus. Here in the United States, we got to have a menu of 20, 30, or 40 things. And I noticed that a lot of these big restaurants that had those have consolidated their menus, reduced them. They're starting to get smart to this because you can't handle those inventories. You can't handle the labor costs that are associated to it. And that's one thing when you go to China, they have these small hole in the wall places, and they might have a menu of 5 things. Now, it might be a noodle restaurant. So you might be able to get 2 or 3 different types of noodles, and they're utilizing the same 5 or 10 vegetables that they chopped up in pans, and they just mix them with different proteins and different sauces. And it's really simplified. So it's 1, 2, 3 in and out the door, and the menus are easy and simplified. They're going to more of the vegetarian items and plant-based items, but it's all fresh and natural. They're not buying this, processed imitation meats. They're not buying processed items. It's 1, 2, 3 fresh noodles out the door. And again, when they have 3 times, 4 times the population that we have in the United States, that's why they're moving them through. And they're moving in and they're bringing in technology. They're bringing this new technology. And again, like I said, some of these small restaurants, you might say, well, this restaurant's doing really well. This restaurant's doing well. Yes. Recently, I just went into a restaurant and kind of forced my children to go. I don't like going out too much anymore, but they wanted to take me out to a sushi restaurant they love. And to get in there, it was a 3-hour wait. So basically, you plan it ahead of time, you make your reservation, and you go in. And it's one of these sushi restaurants where there's a conveyor belt and the sushi goes by you and you pick up the plate that you want and you eat it. And it's a great gimmick, but it doesn't work. And number one, I mean, the conveyor belt with sushi, it was out in 1990 back in San Francisco in Japantown. And I've seen that happening. And, what I do is I analyze these restaurants that I go into. So it's the perfect gimmick. So the age group that's going here is 18 to maybe 30 years old, and they want to take a date and they want to impress them. Not only this is a conveyor belt sushi place, but they have these robots, and these are actually robots from China that I've seen in there. They're actually made from a company called OBTUSE. And the robot brings you your drinks, it brings you your sides, it brings you whatever you ask for, and you just pick up your sushi. And the funny thing is, they make 1 sushi roll and they cut it into 3 portions, and you get a third. So you're paying a higher price, a huge price. Okay, so it's the gimmick. Everybody's like, wow, this is technology. It's the future. There's no waiters. There's no waitresses. And I looked at this operation, and the sushi was, the rice wasn't of quality. The fish wasn't of top quality of a great sushi restaurant. And the kitchen was filthy. And the atmosphere was boring, uninviting, but unfortunately, this is the future. People love this stuff, and it's a gimmick, and they get excited because guess what? We got a robot waiting on us, and they can stay on their iPhones and they can laugh at the robot, and the robot talks to you. And that's one of those exceptions to the rules. And it's a cheaper quality. You're paying a higher price for less, and people are willing to wait. So again, that's one of those exceptions to the rules. Okay, I'm not impressed. I would never go back. And it was a ridiculous check to pay for. And the one thing that you don't realize, it's almost like going to a dim sum restaurant. You just keep grabbing, you're eating with your eyes, and you're eating and eating and eating. And it's like, I looked at the fish and I looked at the quality. I'm just like, I can't eat this. And you can't get service. So if you're out of wasabi or soy sauce, you're literally sitting there hitting a button, waiting for somebody to come and get you. And that's when the hostess comes out and tries to help you. So it was really insanitary, the operation also. So, but that's the gimmick and the future. And the other thing is, if I'm going to open up a small business right now, I'm looking at the future. I'm drawing up a plan for the next 3 to 5 years. If I'm serious about this, what am I going to do to build towards the future where I'm going to have technology? So where I'm going to have technology where it's managing my employees so that I don't get sued, and I'm making sure that timekeeping is in line with the computer system, inventory systems where everything's scanned, and it just creates a par list, an inventory list of what was sold at night from the entrees and what was wasted, and basically shoots out your order for you and basically goes online and places the order. Everything has to be technology driven. That's where we're headed to. We're not getting out of it. I'm looking towards the future and what's going to happen. But I mean, again, pretty soon, a lot of these fast food restaurants, iPad ordering, you're just going to go and order. You can pre-order from your phone. You go in there and you can pick it up, and burgers and fries and potato chips and wings and everything's going to be cooked in the back by a robot. A lot of the stuff is going to be automated. Pizza is going to be automated. There's cookie machines right now. Everything is being where there's labor being flexed out, and it's not just to get rid of the labor. Everyone's like say, okay, well, everyone's going to lose their job. Wait a minute here. We can't even find people to actually work in these restaurants. But we can't even find people to train them. It has to happen, and the other thing is going to create more efficiencies. Okay, and you're saying, well, I can't afford a robot at, 15,000 or $4,000 a month. Actually, yes, you can. When you think about it, some of these robots can last a good 5 to 8 years, and you're not paying somebody for shifts for two different shifts. Okay, which you're paying 20, 30, or $40,000 a year for. Plus, you're not paying for the workman's comp for that employee, and you're not worrying about a liability or a lawsuit. You're saving thousands of dollars. So don't say you can't do this. This is the restaurant industry now. This is where we're going to. And we need to get away from processed foods. And that's another topic that I keep talking about, and how to adapt to this. But a lot of these restaurants are processed. A lot of these chain restaurants process. Dressings, everything that you're eating is processed. So I support the small businesses. I want them out there. I want these soup bowls. I want the fresh product. I want the non-processed. But it's literally almost impossible. So, down the line, there are those exceptions to the rules where those restaurants are doing well, again, like I said, but they're gimmicks. They have it down. They have people that are in the industry that really have an understanding of what they're doing. And a lot of these small business owners are not setting themselves up properly for success. And if you want to, and you're serious about it, well, you can call me. You have my website here, and I'll help you to the best of my knowledge, but don't throw your money away. Stop throwing it away. Stop thinking that you're better. Chefs are, the one thing about the industry is that chefs are arrogant. Now they call them so many other names, but it's just confidence. I understand the confidence thing about being a chef, but take your ego out of it. If you're a business owner, take your ego out of it. You don't have to be a narcissist about things. Just remember, ask for help. You need the help. You can't do it by yourself. You can't manage all these things. You can't manage vendor contracts. And if you're not getting rebates back for all the food you're buying, you're losing money on top of that. You're signing contracts for too long. I go into so many restaurants, so many businesses, and I see wasted money, even from trash. You don't have to have your trash picked up 7 days a week unless you're that busy, or you can just ask for an extra trash can. Recycle bins. There's just so much more that's being wasted. If you're paying for yourself to get your oil from your deep fryers picked up, if you're paying for oil to get picked up, you're losing money. They should be paying you. Okay. Again, there's just so much about this industry that we're wasting money on and we're not paying attention to, and it's just going down the drain, all the trash. And I would like to help you. I would like to get involved into your business, but you have to be humble to it. You have to say, okay, I need the help. I can't do this myself. I don't understand budgets. I don't understand contracts. And unfortunately, everyone has too much of an ego and they don't want to do it. And you know what? When you place your money in your business on the line, I don't care how big an ego you have, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to lose your life savings, especially right now. And again, if you think that you're going to be the exception to the rule and you're going to be this Instagram star and you're going to be able to sell things on the side and your business is going to take off, everyone's doing Este. Everyone's trying to use Amazon to sell. Everyone's doing it. Sooner or later, that bubble is going to pop. Okay. And everyone's just going to be broke without a job. My suggestion, get a job, keep your job. Stop saying, I don't need to take this. I'm not going to be this way. Listen, we work for a company. We support the company we work for, whether we like it. There's no perfect company out there. Not one. I haven't worked for one company in the entire United States. And I've traveled to, 32, 35, 40 states. Can't remember. And I've seen all the laws, and I've seen all these companies, big and small. So prepare yourself. Okay. Don't lose your money. Again, I keep getting these requests to take a look at their contracts, take a look at their leases, and I tell them the truth, and they don't want to hear it. I had a few people actually back out and said, you were right, but it took them 2 or 3 months, and they wanted to fight me the whole entire way. And then they realized when they came down to money and their budget, they couldn't do it, and they weren't prepared. I'm prepared every day. Pros and cons. I have a list. I do all the paperwork. My book to get a loan is about that thick. And most people grab a few pieces of paper and they submit it, and they use a format online, and they really don't understand it. The other thing is too, they try to save costs and cut it and say, I'm going to do it myself. Prime example is getting themselves when they're trying to get an LLC, an S corporation, they go online. They try to use these law firms that do it online, and they try to set themselves up their own business, get their own business license on their own. I get an attorney. I make sure I'm following the right rules, right laws. I'm protecting myself. I put my home in a trust. I make sure I get the right corporation, C corporation, so that if I do lose, and if I do have to file bankruptcy, or if I have to quit the business, they can't come after you and take all your assets, take your life away. And you see too many business owners lose everything overnight because they didn't make the right decisions. Over $800 on an attorney because you wanted to spend $100 or $50 and do it yourself, and you didn't file properly. You didn't have the right business plan in place. There's too much at risk for you to just cut corners. There's no cutting corners when it comes to business. There's a format. There are rules to it. Again, you're not the exception. No one is. Not even myself. Be smart. Hire someone to help you. Have any questions? Contact me at Sustainable Culinary Solutions. There's a link on there. There's my email, my phone number. Again, thank you for your time, and have a great day. Take care.